Hello.
Oh, there we go, Matt. We can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, we finally can hear you.
Very good. You let me in.
Yeah, we actually started the meeting, so everyone basically can hear us now.
Okay, no problem. So we have a couple of people, Vivian and Walter. Very good. Welcome to you two. We'll see how many other people we have join. When did we start announcing this event? It was only maybe a week ago.
Yeah, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 weeks. I think it's been relatively new.
I think 1 week. Yeah, I think we announced last week.
All right. Well, it's not quite past. We'll give it a few minutes.
We're a little ahead of the game.
Yeah. Hello, Stephen. Welcome. Looks like everyone else has their microphone turned off, so that's fine. So thanks for joining. We'll start in a few minutes. Artyom, you're home, are you?
Yes.
Down at
yes.
Sutherland? Yeah.
Kirrawie. Yes. Kirrawie.
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder if people can post something in the chat so that we can see questions in case they have them. Oh yeah, I see someone.
Yeah, I can see Stephen's written already.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Stephen. Walter, hello. Stephen, Walter, Vivian, where are you dialing in from? Looks like we've got two Stephens. Okay, Walter's in Sydney. Mittagong. Well, you're honorary Sydney, Stephen. Just a bit colder. Yeah, I think the mics are disabled for everyone. The meeting has probably been set up as a, geez, I'm not even sure what they call them, an event or a broadcast event, so that people can't talk, which is a bit unfortunate. But you feel free to put any messages in the chat if you'd like to ask any questions throughout the presentations. It would be good to put them in the chat. We'll check with Calum and Artyom and find out how they would like to take questions. Maybe we just sort that out. What, Calum and Artyom, what are your thoughts on questions? How would you like to do it?
Well, to me, it's okay if you can just stop me and ask a quick question, and I will try to answer. Otherwise, I can do it in at the end. Well, my presentation will be second, and it's more live demo and technical, so I don't want to spend much time in the middle answering questions because I want to cover everything.
Okay.
For Calum, what are your thoughts about your presentation and questions?
Look, I've got a little bit locked at the side at the end just to answer any questions, but I think if there are any questions throughout, welcome to just chime in. I'll probably be in presenter mode, so I won't see stuff pop up on Teams. So Matt or Artyom, maybe if the question does come in, you're welcome just to shout over the top of me, and I'll answer anything as it comes up then.
All right, terrific. I see Andrew. Hello, Andrew. Haven't seen you for a couple of years. I know you've been around on a few of the calls, but haven't bumped into you live, so welcome. All right. Look, I think I will shall I just share my screen? I actually don't have any slides to share today, so maybe I won't share my screen, but I'll just speak very briefly. So first of all, everyone, thank you for joining us on behalf of Agile Analytics. This is our March meetup. For those of you that have been to our Sydney Power BI and Fabric user group, we do try and do live sessions mainly now, so we're sort of trying to get back to normal. But every now and then we give a break and we open up a session like this online. It does mean that people like Stephen in Mittagong and perhaps other places who would find it a little bit harder to come into a live meetup, they get the opportunity to come along as well. As you probably heard in the very early intro, if you do have any questions through the presentations, please just drop them in the chat. and either we'll find the opportunity to either ask the presenters those questions, or if not, we'll certainly cover them at the end of the sessions. So we have two presenters tonight. So we have Calum and Artyom Takuev. Sorry, Artyom, I butchered that.
Yeah,
I did check, but
pretty good.
So welcome to both Artyom and Calum. So Artyom and Calum are two of our senior consultants at Agile Analytics. We have a team of consultants with different skills, and so they've agreed to share some of the things that they've been doing with some of our clients and help you get some insights as to what they've been up to, and maybe there's something that might spark an idea with you that will help you get some success in your business ventures. So we're going to be talking about two basic topics tonight. We're going to be talking about a realistic load testing tool, and I think, Calum, that you're going to be talking about that first, right?
No,
other way around.
No,
okay,
I will do.
All right, so Artyom's going to talk about that second, and then to start off with, Calum's going to talk about data storytelling using Power BI. So I'll allow each of the speakers to introduce themselves and talk about their topic, and I'll put myself on mute, and fire those questions through if you have any, and we'll certainly take a pause after Calum talks, make sure we answer any questions, and then we'll go on to Artyom's presentation. Just for a time check, probably an hour and a quarter, so it's sort of 5:35. So maybe about 6:45 we should be finished, somewhere around there. So we did put 2 hours in the diary, but we're not planning on going that long. But it does depend on the questions a little bit. So with that, I'll hand over to Calum to introduce yourself, and I'll put you on Spotlight so that hopefully everyone can see you and you can share your screen. And yeah, over to you, Calum.
Excellent. Well, lovely to meet all of you. Just 1 second. Let me just choose the right thing to share. Oh, all right. So, quick technical check. Can we all see my presentation okay? Artyom, are you seeing that one?
All good.
Yes,
yep, all good.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to have a chat to you tonight about data storytelling. Now, this is something that I care deeply and dearly about, and something I will quite happily nerd out about for quite a long time. Data storytelling is a really, really powerful tool in your reporting. I think it's something that a lot of people think they do, and it's something that not everybody actually really lands that well. And there's a lot of bits and pieces we can do to just improve it, tweak it, borrow inspiration from different areas. Now, in terms of my background, as was already mentioned, I'm a senior Power BI consultant with Agile Analytics. So, obviously I've done some training in the data science space, but also back in the day I did a degree in English literature. So that intersection between narrative fiction and data is really, really interesting to me. So it's something I've always tried to leverage where I can. What we're going to talk about tonight is in 3 main areas. We're going to talk about some definitions, first of all. So really just nailing down exactly what do we mean when we're talking about data storytelling. We're going to talk about some techniques, borrowing from both narrative fiction and from graphic design. And then we're also going to talk about the benefits. Why should you even be doing this in the first place? What is it that's so particularly powerful about data storytelling? So like I said, I think there's a lot of confusion in the community about exactly what we mean by data storytelling. I think a lot of people would immediately say, yeah, of course I do data storytelling all the time. I know how to put charts on a page. I know what a bar chart is. I know what a pie chart is. We're putting data in a visual way, therefore we're telling a story. Now, I think there is an important bit of nuance here, and let's go into a little bit more detail. So data storytelling is really the intersection between 3 areas. There's the data, which is our information that's feeding our reporting. There's our visuals, which are, how are we representing this on the page? Is this our bar chart? Is it a line chart? Is it a tree graph? But the point that often gets missed is this 3rd section here, the narrative. And the narrative is really when we're, going to be applying a larger business context to what we're saying on our screen. And it's doing a couple of different things. It's helping explain our data to, in a way that people can understand better. But importantly, it's also engaging people more with your visuals. Now, with all of these points together, the whole point of not just data storytelling in general, but all of our analytics is to drive change within an organization. The whole point of a report is that someone should be able to look at it, learn something, and then go off and pull a lever within their organization. So that narrative element is helping us drive towards change in the organization by getting that engagement, by getting, building that buy-in with your stakeholders and convincing them with what you're explaining about the data. If you don't have the narrative built into your reporting, there's a little bit of a danger of that kind of will so what factor. I can see the results of 20 different areas here. I can see the ups and downs of a product. Why is that important to me? Why should I care about it? Particularly if this is the 10th report I've looked at today. We need to make sure that we're driving our users towards change. Now, by default, if we put a chart on a page, it is by its nature democratic. There's, in this little example here, we've got a number of different areas. There's an obvious ordering to it. We've got big values on the left, going down to smaller values on the right. But there's no clear decision as to which of these is the important one that I should be looking at. In some cases, it could be, I want to know my top seller. I want to know my biggest number. In some cases, it is, I want to know what the smallest one is. Where should I be putting more money into development to try and build up a market? The whole point of data storytelling is that it is not democratic, it's editorial. It has made a decision about what is important and what is not important. Where do we want to draw attention to over other points? Now, it does that by adding information, and it does it by directing attention. And we're going to talk in a little while about, some of the different ways in which you can do that. In this example here, we've used color to highlight one particular bar. We've added in a little bit of extra business context to say why this particular one is important. But the whole point is that we've made a decision about what is important and what is not important. Now, that is often not a decision that we can make ourselves, particularly if we're in reporting teams and working as part of a larger organization. You really need to be working with your stakeholders to understand what is the story that we can be, that we should be telling. We need help from them to understand what can we say is important and what can we say is not important. So why does it matter? I think certainly within the consulting space, a lot of the time we'll hear from our clients, oh, I just want to understand the trend. I want to know how the figures are going. I want to see where the figures are trending. But I think often when we really dig down into it, what they're wanting to understand is more what is the story behind the numbers. To look at a relatively famous example here, between these four graphs, technically, they all have the exact same trend. However, I think by looking at them, you can see they're all telling quite different stories. Figure 1 here is a fairly straight linear regression of figures moving in one direction. Figure 2 is much more of a rise and fall. We were going up, something happened, now we're coming down. Figures 3 and 4 are really more looking at outliers and then raising those questions around, well, what's normal? What's outside of normal? Should we let what is outside of normal affect how we're predicting things, or, how we're measuring, or how we're progressing or not? So again, we need to talk to our stakeholders and really understand what is it that they're really, really wanting to see within our charts. And often it's not just as simple as a trend by itself. So In terms of why data storytelling matters, there's a couple of really great quotes from someone called Brent Dykes, who does a lot of really good work in the data storytelling space. So I would encourage you to look up his work. There's some notes with references at the end of the presentation with some links to an article that he's done, which I found really helpful. The first one being, people hear statistics, but they feel stories. Now, saying that they feel stories, the important point there is it's an emotional engagement that people have to stories. Stories speak to a different part of the brain than statistics and rational thought. Now, we'll talk more about this later on in terms of what that's doing and how that's helping us, but just knowing that it's activating a different mode. It's letting your reader put a different hat on when they're looking at your report. And if an insight isn't understood and isn't compelling, no one will act on it and no change will occur. So this goes back to that picture we were looking at before with the 3 sections. The insight has to be understood and it has to be compelling. Narratives are helping to explain your data and they're helping people to engage with your visuals. And everything we're doing has to drive change within the organization. That's the whole point of what we're doing. So how do we actually go about doing that within our reports? As I mentioned, it's a little bit of the art meets science here. We're borrowing elements from graphic design and from narrative fiction. And we're going to be looking at, how do I say what's a big number versus what's a small number? But also, how do I draw someone's attention to something? How do I help tell that story by directing them to what's important once we have decided what that important thing is? So from a visual perspective, there's been a lot of great research done in terms of comparison accuracy. So this is the idea of saying, I've got lots of numbers on a page in visuals. How can I tell which is a big number and which is a small number? And what was found was that there was a bit of a ranking between the ways that we can display this information. The easiest way is to have, I'll just put my laser pointer on, different values aligned against a common scale. So there's a reason why bar charts and column charts probably make up a good, 70 to 80% of most visuals in reports, because it's very easy to look at them and gauge what's a big number and what's a small number. There's, of course, other ways that you can do it as well. We can encode things by length or by angle or slope or area. But as we go further down this list, it becomes harder and harder for somebody to quickly parse what a big number is versus what's a small number. Our old friend, the pie chart, often cops a lot of flack here. And then one of the reasons for that is because pie charts are encoding these numbers by angle. So number 4, it's harder for people to gauge what is a big angle versus what is a small angle visually compared to, these numbers listed against common scale, or even things like length encodings as well. It goes further down. You'll often see some tree maps thrown into some reports. They look cool. It's a nice way of kind of breaking up the visuals. It's nice and colorful. But it's, again, here we're encoding by area. So it becomes harder still to gauge what's a big number. Is this rectangle particularly bigger than the other rectangle beside it? But then we also think about, how do we guide people's attention? And there's lots of different ways of doing that. Some of them we've looked at already, and some of them you'll probably already be familiar with. So in the earlier example, we were looking in terms of democratic versus editorial. We were using color hue to say, this one particular bar is the one that we want to be looking at. But it's not the only way you can do it. You can do things like enclosure. So drawing a box around certain elements is going to draw people's eye to it. And it's going to let them know that the things inside that box are all related. Position. So, we talk a lot about like Gestalt principles and white space within reporting. Position is separating something out from the rest to say, hey, this is important. There's a reason it's not just being lumped in with all of the rest. Even things like width, you'll notice that in text as well. So we'll often make our page titles bold, or a particular word within a paragraph might be marked as bold to mark it as an important word. Now, what you'll find is that these things don't need to be done in isolation. Often you might have 1 or 2 or even 3 of those different encodings happening at the same time to make it easier to get that message across, to see what's big versus what's small, and what should I be paying attention to. And we'll have a look at a few examples. And I can get my laser pointer to go away. There we go. All right. So this is some of the bits that we might borrow from narrative fiction. And one of the reasons why it's such a powerful tool is because it's something that we all kind of just intuitively know. We've all grown up having, hearing stories. We've all grown up seeing things in TVs, TV shows and movies, having stories read to us when we were kids. The structure immediately feels very familiar to us. And there's this one particular storytelling structure which I think is particularly helpful in the data and reporting space, which is called Freytag's pyramid. And just to give you an example kind of from narrative fiction, if we take something like Lord of the Rings, say, there's different phases that the story moves through. So, in our introduction, we've got Frodo's just happily chilling in the Shire. We have an inciting incident. Gandalf gives him a ring. Turns out it's bad. There's a lot of rising action, and that's generally where kind of the meat of your story will be. So, they form the fellowships. They travel across Middle-earth. They get split up. They have big battles. All of these lovely things. They have a climax where the One Ring gets chucked into Mount Doom. Now, the resolution of the story, the hobbits all head back to the Shire. Their job's done, and Frodo has to go and live with the elves because he's sad. And then we have a conclusion, and this, you can often think about this as the moral of the story. So, in this case, something like saying, even a hobbit can save the world. Importantly here, throughout this whole process, we have character growth. So Frodo at the start of the story is not the same as he is by the end of the story. He's grown, he's gained more knowledge as he goes along. So let's think about this from a data storytelling perspective rather than narrative fiction. So let's say we have Haddo Industries. And Haddo Industries usually generate an average of, let's say, 5,000 units per month. Deviation here, in July, there was only 1,500 units generated. And then some supporting facts. This happened to coincide with a large increase in machinery maintenance requests within the same month. Our main insight, if this rate of production continues, we will not beat budget this financial year. Recommendation, maintenance should be actioned as soon as possible to allow production to return to normal levels. And our conclusion, our moral of the story is, if we do all these things, we will hit budget by the end of the year. So just like in fiction, our audience has come in at this point and they've learned information and they're now at a different point leaving the visual than when they started it. Now, it's worth pointing out too that this story, in some cases, can just be within a single visual. Often it might be within a few visuals side by side. Sometimes it might even be across multiple pages of a report. But laying them out in this order is helpful in terms of following that structure and taking your user along that journey with you to allow them to draw those same conclusions and understand why you've recommended what you've recommended. But as we talked about earlier on, that business context is really important so that we make sure that we're picking the right stories to tell. Now, when we're making reports, it usually falls into one of two camps, either static or dynamic. Now, static reporting is when we have a set of data that we know is not going to change. Now, you'll often see this in things like journalism. You might see it in, for example, times when, let's say, a company is preparing an annual report and they're looking at all the data across the past year. If anything, it's easier to do storytelling with static data because the information that you have to work with isn't going to change. Once you've found an insight to share, great. We can set that in stone. That's what we're sharing. We know that this is the important bit. That's what we're going to talk about. So this example that we're looking at here is a visual that's been put together looking at 2020's biggest tech acquisitions. And you're going to notice a few different familiar things here. So we have, we've got lots of data points aligned to a common axis. We can see that there is some area encoding going on here. So the larger the circle means the bigger the number. With the points aligned to a common axis, the taller it is, the bigger it is. So again, very easy to see. We can say, yep, this is definitely our biggest one right here. There's also some color encoding going on with a gradient. So you can see, yep, the darker the color, the darker the color in the gradient, the higher our number too. So again, it's all letting us very quickly jump to, yep, this is the big one. These are almost as big. I can see that. Now, we've also added in some additional context with some extra text down here, a few kind of pointing arrows. And as I said, this is easy enough to do because we know that, these numbers are not going to change the next time we open up the report. Now, this allows you to have quite a tightly controlled message because you're just looking at a single point in time. The more difficult element is often the boat that we tend to land in, which is dynamic storytelling. Now, we will often build Power BI reports connected to a data set that will change over time. We'll have new information added or updated or deleted over time. So the implication of that is, how do you tell a story when the story keeps changing? Let's say halfway through Lord of the Rings, suddenly there's now 4 rings of power instead of 1. And Gimli is now a giraffe instead of a dwarf. We can't just really throw our hands up and say, well, we can't tell stories anymore. We just need to be a little bit smarter about how we do it. I think my general approach is you can leverage some of the more dynamic aspects of Power BI. So things like conditional formatting. You can add in text measures that are going to change what they're saying on the screen, depending on the values that feed into them. But I think an approach change can be just as helpful too. Making your reports a little bit more exploratory rather than explanatory will help people go through that journey, find the insights, and be able to draw conclusions from them. Now, the example we're looking at just here is looking at road deaths around the world in different countries. When you click on a particular country, it'll give you a little bit more information up in the top corner about, the average number of deaths per 100,000 people. You can see a breakdown of the different types of traffic accidents. You can see information about different restrictions in laws. So restrictions on things like alcohol, the laws around seatbelt usage and helmet usage and things like that. You can still add in some explanatory text and overlay information to it. And, even though this is much more interactive and much more exploratory, there's still a fairly clear narrative here. Road deaths are bad. By looking at some particular countries, you can start to see, well, hang on, maybe is there a bit of a correlation between people with better restrictions on, let's say, alcohol and seatbelt use? Does that seem to correlate with a lower number of deaths? You can start to look at some of the different types of traffic accidents. You can see if there's a link between helmet usage and people on motorbikes. So you have to be a little bit more willing to be slightly more flexible in the story that you're telling, but that's not to say that you can't guide people along the way. So looking at an example of what a real life dashboard might look like with some storytelling elements added in, there's a few different things going on here. We have different sections grouped together. So most people looking at this, well, certainly most Western audiences are going to read this first section from left to right, and then the second section from left to right. We can see some of that enclosure we were talking about. So we can look at this and know, yep, these elements are all related to each other. We can use things like conditional text to change what information is being shown based on our figures. We can use things like conditional formatting to change the color of things between red or amber or green to highlight whether it's a good number or a bad number and provide some additional context there too. So even without necessarily changing that much about the visuals that we're putting on our screen, there are some considerations that we can add in that will help with telling that story. So why should we do it? Why, what are the benefits of adding in data storytelling? Comes into three main areas. A good data story will be memorable. So there's a study done that found that 63% of participants could remember stories, but only 5% could remember a single statistic after the fact. It'll be more persuasive. The charity Save the Children did some research where they created two versions of a fundraising brochure. And one was based on an infographic and one was based on a story. And they found that the story-based version outperformed the infographic by $2.38 to $1.14 in terms of average donations, or per participant donations. And it'll also be more engaging. And this goes to what we were speaking earlier about that emotional connection. Researchers found that people enter almost a trance-like state. They drop their intellectual guard and they're less critical and skeptical when they're being told a story compared to when you're presenting somebody with facts. Now, obviously, that doesn't just give us free rein to just make up anything and, be evil data scientists and spread lies and misinformation. Obviously, the ethical onus is still on us to use our powers for good. But it's a very helpful tool in terms of getting people to come along on that journey with you and helping get that buy-in with the reports that you're building. So just to sum up a few points, we should strive to tell stories to our stakeholders, not just present facts. Our stories should always drive towards action or change within an organization. We can't tell these stories without help from the business and from our users to understand what the important stories are and what they need to hear. And it can help differentiate your report. You're often going to be in the position where somebody is looking at, 5, 10 reports in a day, sometimes in a row. We need to quickly give information in a way that's going to resonate with people, help them retain it, and go out and act on it within the business. So this is a really, really powerful tool to get you that traction, get you that buy-in and retention from your users, and really make your reports stand out. Right, and then lastly, as Wise Man once said, any questions?
Thanks, Calum. So there is a question that's just come in from May. I wonder whether you could just have a look in the chat. So I guess the essence of her question, if I understand, is that if you've got a subset of data to show, so say 3 statistics, but there's 6 countries in total, would you sort of allow some sort of user interaction or just display it in a static way? And if I could just put my own little twist on that, because I had a similar question listening early on in your talk about, you said that someone has to decide what's important in the message, and then you gave an example early on where you highlighted one of the columns. So this might be a similar example we're talking about with countries. So to me, that it sounds like there's actually 2 things. There's reporting tools, which could be interactive and allows the user just to go and explore the data. But then maybe what you're talking about is more this storytelling where you actually have a purpose to almost take like a PowerPoint slide version of the data. Maybe it is a PowerPoint slide version of the data, and just call out the exact key points that you're trying to make. So is there a role for both of those things? Sorry, it was a bit of a long-winded question.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely going to depend on your audience as well. You know, oftentimes what might happen is your executive team looking at this report might be more looking for what you're talking about in the second point there. You know, they might just be looking for that higher level understanding of what's the key takeaway from this. Whereas your people on the ground may need that more kind of granular understanding of exactly what's happening in all of our different values. To the question in terms of if we have to show only 3 statistics for just 6 countries, would we need user interaction, or would it be better to just display it in a static way? I think, to me, again, it's an audience question. The question is it important that we see a comparison between them? Do we want to know who's higher than who? Or are we just wanting to understand a value for a particular country? So I think if it's a more strategic report, then that ability to be able to go in and compare, yeah, that can be really powerful. So let's see, if we create a PBI caters to both, then it has the overview snapshot for SLT and the ability to click and dig in deeper for others. Yeah, and look, from a tooling perspective, that's something that Power BI is actually really good at. Yeah, senior leadership, yeah, perfect. It's something that is really good at. I mean, to me, at the start of your report, if you can have your key headlines, your key takeaways, then your people that just need to look at that first page, great, they can look at it, they can go, they can do what they need to do. For the people that need to understand that more nuanced level of detail, that's where some of the great Power BI tools, things like drill through pages and the ability to drill up and down in particular visuals can be really helpful, because you can have that complexity there, but you can hide it away from the people that don't necessarily need to see it. You can still keep and present a really clear message up front, and then allow people to dig on into the nuance if they want it, rather than overcomplicating everything with a higher level of nuance from the get-go. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. So
yeah, guys, I see one hand raised from Ada. I'm not sure if that's a question. We can try to enable mic for her. I'm not sure if we can do that.
Alternatively, just pop your question in chat either way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think the mics may be disabled. Unfortunately, I'm not sure whether we meant to do that, but oh no, sorry, it has. All right, so it is enabled. So Ada, if you do have something you wanted to ask, you should be able to unmute yourself now and then ask a question. Or maybe there's a problem at your end. So, all right. Well, look, I think what we'll do is we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much, Calum. Hopefully, there's some insights for other people there. And with that, I'll hand over to Artyom. And Artyom, I'll let you introduce your topic and take us through for the rest of the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Hello, everyone. My name is Artyom Takuyev. I'm a principal consultant at Agile Analytics. This is my third Power BI Sydney Meetup where I'm presenting, which is a great pleasure for me. So one was together with one of our clients, so one was virtual when I talked about slicers, and I'm pretty sure you can still find the recording of that one in the Agile Analytics YouTube channel. So this is the third one. And today I'm going to talk about Power BI Realistic Load Test Tool. So, and just to start with, I want to start from the story. And so I will just quickly share my screen just to check everything is working. Yes, perfect. So the story was, I had a project with one big client, and the client had a very specific requirements. So it was a government organization, and the requirements was to build a reporting solution near real-time reporting solution with some statuses of incidents which had to be reported within 5 minutes from it happened, with all the statuses being updated very quickly, because lots of operators would monitor that on the Power BI screens report pages, and they need to react and see when statuses changes. And we had tens or even more operators who had to work simultaneously. In addition to that, we had to add some filtering capabilities, show history, compare with previous periods of time. It's quite a complex requirement for new real-time reporting solution. And very quickly, we came down to the direct query approach. Well, Fabric was not, and Direct Lake was not an option then. And like there were no questions. We need to go with direct query. And while recommending direct query, I started to be a bit concerned, thinking, okay, so we have tens of operators. We're going to go with direct query. We're definitely going to do everything optimized as much as possible. But how are we going to test it eventually? Like, because, you know, when you build a report and you can optimize everything and you can test it, testers can test it, 2, 3, 5 testers can test it and say, okay, it's working. And the requirement was the page must automatically refresh even without operators doing something. Like if they sit and they watch, the page must refresh after some period of times. And well, technically that was possible. But I was a bit concerned about testing approach. So yes, we built a solution. We kind of knew what technologies to use. We optimized everything, like data engineering team did everything like we asked them to do. We followed all the direct query related best practices and recommendations. But at the end of the day, we need to prove to customer that before going to production deployment, we actually have the requested performance, so that report pages will refresh within seconds, like 10 seconds or 5 seconds for 15 or 20 operators working simultaneously. That was a challenge. So one option could be we can just ask people to test that, find 15, 20, 25 testers, put them together and say, guys, now try to use this report and tell what's happening. But that's quite challenging. So I started to find, to look for a more automated and reliable solution. And I came across this article that you can see on your screen. So I will see if I can paste it in the chat. It should be possible. Okay. Yeah, great. By Chris, the article is by Chris Webb, who is quite famous in Power BI community. So I encourage you to read through it. It's not very long, but very useful for this kind of scenarios and approach. And he was talking exactly about our situation. So he recommended to look at this tool, realistic load test tool, which I did, and I found it amazing. So that was the answer for all my questions. It's actually a open source tool. You can find it here. So I will share the link with you too. Okay, so well, because it's open source, so you need to be kind of careful when you want to use it in a corporate environment, probably not using with sensitive data, just maybe in dev environment with dummy data, etc., and get approval from your security department. But it does exactly what we needed to do. It has this page actually at GitHub has a very good description of the tool. You can check and go through all the scripts and all the codes that are used. And even more, you can modify it and adjust it in the way even enhancing its capabilities. So what we're going to do today is I will demonstrate you how to set it up, configure, and even enhance its capability to test your report. And the main goal we will try to achieve is this. So I will simulate a user actions, like the changing slicers, filters, clicking bookmarks, and do all the stuff that users usually do. I will do it on my single machine, imitating actions of multiple users, and will measure refresh time of each session. We will set threshold. We will see how many times that threshold was reached, and it will have some statistics that can be used to prove that your solution actually addresses your performance requirements, or no, and you need further optimization. And because, like in our particular case, that was especially important to do, because with direct query, you know that every time you refresh your report page, each and every visual sends a query to your data source SQL database. And with all the queries from 20 users, etc., refreshing that each and every page, there are also demands from performance, from SQL performance, right? So with this tool, basically imitating that user activities, you can monitor all your solution components and see where you have bottleneck, which is great. Okay, so just a little bit about our setup today. So I will be testing my demo report that I have deployed in my demo workspace. So it's not a direct query report, but the approach is the same. And we can probably use it not only, well, not probably, but we can use it not only with direct query. So sometimes when you have quite a complex requirements, and you may have metrics with measures that are quite complex, and you have filters from multiple dimensions, and many users work, well, it can also be slow. So, and you can reach some capacity limits. So basically, this tool is applicable for all kinds of reports. And so what we'll do, in this report, we have multiple pages. We have some filters on the page. We have some bookmarks that switch views between map and metrics, graphs, etc. So we'll try to imitate user activities using that tool. For that, we need to download it. So we can download it from the same page. If we go here to code, this is the link. I will share it with you too. Okay, so for some reason okay, here it is. Now, I already have it downloaded, so I will not download it here. It's archive. I will just extract it on my desktop. Okay, so here I have the folder, and in the folder, when I extract it, I have this realistic load test tool folder, which has this set of files. I have these two demo load test folders. I will not spend time on explaining that. So there are some examples of configuration, and also the article on on the web page describes that examples very well. So you can go ahead and read through and see how you can configure even from this page. But I will just do a demo of that, talking you through. So I will delete these two guys, and we'll start from the scratch. There are some prerequisites in order to make this tool work. So here they are. First of all, you need admin rights on your machine, which is pretty obvious. So we need to run PowerShell as administrator. Also, we will need to set execution policy to unrestricted for the period of time when we use this tool. and then we can just change it back for security reasons, of course. We also need to install this package, which I will show how to do. It's pretty easy. So let's start from the PowerShell tool. So if you search in your machine, you will definitely find it. And I'm running it as administrator. Okay, here I have it. Now, I already have this package installed, but just to demonstrate, so it's fairly easy to do. This is the one we need. So we basically go here, we copy this command string, and we paste it in PowerShell, and it's being installed. That's it. So after a few seconds, it will just finish. And now let's do some interesting stuff. So then I will change my execution policy to unrestricted. Again, I'm just copying this command, I'm pasting here, I'm hitting enter, I'm saying yes to all, and this is done. Again, don't forget to change it back. For that, you will need to set execution policy restricted and confirm it again when you're done with testing. Now, then, in order to proceed, you will need to know only 2 PowerShell commands, which are pretty basic. So first, we need to go to this location where we have the tool unpacked. So I can basically copy my address from the open folder, right-clicking, copy address. And then I need to use a command, PowerShell command called cd, which stands for change directory. Well, it's coming from MS-DOS and all the old operating systems when we didn't have graphical user interface. But anyway, so I'm putting my address in the quotation mark and I hit enter. Now, then I need a second command, which is dir, and that lists everything we have there. Okay. So I will go into realistic load test tool folder. So this one, I could have copied its address, but I will just change the directory here. So I will just quickly do that. And that's a list of my objects, similar to what I see here. Now, why I came here? Because I need to run scripts here. These JSON files, these 3 JSON files are basically my scripts. And so I will first run setup load test. In order to do that, I need to start typing it in my PowerShell window. Now, I will tell you one secret if you're not familiar with PowerShell console. So when you start typing something and then you press tab button, which I will do now, it will finish the string for you. So, and basically, yeah, just screen. So, sorry, just. Okay, so I won't, no, not that one. Apologies. Probably when I resized it, something went wrong. Just a moment, we'll do it one more time. Okay, setup. I pressed tab, it finished the command. So I'm hitting enter to run the script. Now, what's going to happen? It will ask me again if I want to run the script. So I say yes, run once. And it asks me how many reports I want to configure. Okay, I will say 1. Now, what's happening next? I see a Microsoft login window So I log in with my credentials. And after I do that, it checks what workspaces I have access to. So now I need to find the workspace where I have my reports deployed and just enter the number of that. So I know that's number 14. So I'm entering 14, and then I see the list of all reports deployed in that workspace. Right now I have only one report deployed, so I'm just picking one and hitting enter. Something happened. Well, no errors. You can, when you do it, you can read through what happened, but basically it just created a folder with some basic configuration to run the test for my report. Okay, so if I look inside that folder, I will see an HTML document and two JSON files. One is a token file. And by the way, if you read through this article, you will know that tokens are generated for 1 hour. So if you're testing your solution for 1 hour, after 1 hour, you will need to run a token generation script. It's another file which is will just refresh the token. So this is the one, update token only. You don't need to set up the configuration again. You just need to run it. If you do it in less than 60 minutes, then you don't need to do that. But anyway, so just be aware that token is valid only for 1 hour for security reasons, of course. And this is this JSON file is my tool configuration, which we will go through and we'll add some components to that gradually. But so we can basically open it, and I prefer to open it in the Visual Studio Code, but you can open it even in Notepad and any text editor and change it. So what I will do, I will first run it with a basic configuration just to show you what's going to happen. So I will just make it more readable. So you see we have just 3 components here. So we have report URL, our report address. We have number of sessions we want to restart, and we have sync time in seconds equal to 1 second. Now, if I run the tool, I want to show you what we'll see as a result of this configuration. Now, to run the tool, I need to run this script from my folder called run load test tool. So I'm going back to my PowerShell console, and so I will type run load test only. I'm hitting enter. Again, I need to confirm that I'm running this script. And next question, interestingly, the tool is asking me enter number of instances to initiate for each report. Okay, I will enter 2. So I want 2 sessions to be simulated. And I'm hitting enter. What's going to happen? The tool will automatically open Google Chrome with my report being loaded automatically in a loop, refreshing constantly, and with some additional header. By the way, Google Chrome is another requirement for this tool to operate. So you need to have Google Chrome installed on your machine. In this header, you see it shows number of refreshes, average refresh time, and that 1 second interval that we have in our configuration file, sync time in seconds. Well, the idea of that parameter is to allow time between refreshes, which is considered the time when user make decisions to go further. But 1 second is not realistic, right? So no one will just change something on the report in 1 second. So let's stop it and change that parameter. I will just, to stop it, I will click enter, press enter to continue. So I'm clicking enter. My session will end. Okay. And I'm going to change that parameter to 5 seconds. All right, so I change it, I hit save to my configuration, and I will run it again. Yes, 2 reports, here we go. Two windows are open. Now the report will refresh in every 5 seconds. So this parameter changed. So basically the changes to our parameter file took effect, which is great. But this is not really a testing scenario, right? So just opening the same page of the report, well, it doesn't bring any value because once you open it, it probably cached. So, and also some complications may come with different filters applied for different views and pages, etc. And that's what we need to measure. So let's enhance our configuration a little bit. So I will just interrupt this session again. And we'll see what we can do with that. Just to make it a bit easier to understand what's going on, I will change this folder name to sales because I'm now displaying my sales page of my report. So I will know that this is the configuration of my sales page that I'm testing. So I will open it again with Visual Studio Code. We'll change drop to make it easier to read. Now, if we go to the article, we will see that there is, first of all, there is a description of all parameters we can add to the configuration file. But there is also an example which is very easy to follow. So what I will do, I will now add filter to my configuration from the example. So I'm just copying this part from the example on the website. And I will modify it for my report. And you will see how easy is that to use. Okay, so I'll just paste it like it is here. And I will just use one report filter. So I'm just removing this section. Okay, as you can see in the filter configuration, I have filter table, filter column, is slicer parameter true, and then some filter values. So what I need to do, I just need to check what tables are used in my tabular model for particular slicers, and I can apply that. So let's say I want to imitate user actions that will use this slicer on this page, setting some different filtering configuration. And I will check. So in this slicer, I use sales table and this warranty column. So basically, I need to put it in my configuration instead of the example parameters. So I will do that right away. I'm changing table to sales, and I'm changing column name to warranty column. Now, is slicer, I need to put it as true if I have the slicer on the page. We may also have filtering for columns and tables that are not presented as a slicer, and I will show that in the next example. But now let's say we're using the slicer. Okay, and now I want to enter filter parameters. Here is the thing. I know that one of my filtering values will not return me many records. So I don't want to use it individually. I always want to use these two together and this one separately. I can do that basically. So for that, I will just use this syntax. I will just quickly do that here. So instead of this listing all my values for filter, I will put two sections to this filter list parameter. So I'm saying select these two together or select this one separately. Okay, so let's save and see what's going to happen. So I save my parameters. Hopefully I haven't made any mistakes, because if I have a mistake, I will not understand that. So I will need to go back to the code and think what was wrong, because it's a kind of the half manual tool which will not tell you what's wrong. If it's not wrong, it's just not going to display the results. But let's hope I did it right. Entering, again, starting 2 sessions. Let's see. Okay, it looks like it is working. So basically, I can see that my slicer now is being activated. So sometimes I have one parameter filtered, sometimes one value selected, sometimes I have 2. So it's changing. It uses the combinations that I provided. Now let's make it even more interesting. So I will finish it right now. And I will enter the third one. Basically, I will just do it right here. So I will say select 2, select all 3, and then select 1. So I will just copy this one and put it here. So we will have 3 ways of using that slicer now. Saying save, running it again, saying yes, and 2 sessions. Or we can do 3, actually. So let's say we're testing like it may work for 3 users. All right, so as you can see, here we have 3 values selected, here we have 2 selected, here we have 1, and we have 3 windows refreshing it automatically after every 5 seconds and measuring average refresh time. Okay, it's better. Still not what I want in the end, but it's definitely much better. Now I will add some complexity to filtering. Okay, so I'm just stopping this. And I will add few more filters. Some of them will be as presented as slicers. Some of them will be just from the tabular model, not as slicers, and I will show the difference. Okay, so I will just paste the already prepared code. So you see, the first one is slicer true. The second one, geography continent name, is not presented as a slicer, but I still want to use it. I will show how it works. And we have other 2. Now, the good thing about this tool is actually that tool will use all the possible combinations of that slicers. Like it will take each and every filtering options that are provided and combine it with all others, which gives us a lots of different combinations of filtering that I can use for my testing. Okay, so let's see how it's going to work. I'm saving it and running my tool again. Let's make it 3 users. Okay. You see now other filters showing some selection. How I can check that that values are applied? Well, this is still Power BI report. This is still interactive. So when it refreshes, I can hover my mouse over filter and see what's being applied at that particular moment. Easy. What about the one that is not presented on the page as a slicer? Well, I have this filters pane, which allows me to see what's being applied here. So if we don't have a slicer, we still can use columns and tables and columns for filtering, and we will see it here. Even if you have that filters pane hidden in your actual report, this tool will show it so that you can track what's being filtered. Great. Now I have this flexibility about filters. I can do literally anything, any combination, and this tool will go through all the combinations. Now, what about other pages of the report? Well, you will not believe how easy it is to add other pages. Now, what I will do, because I know that on the second page, like I will add the second page called returns. I have the same filter, so I will just copy my main configuration, this one, sales folder, paste it, and I will call it returns. So the name of the folder does not have any effect on the configuration. So I'm just doing that to know that this is the one I'm configuring for that page. Now, in the configuration file for my second page, I need to add another parameter, which will indicate which page I'm going to run. So if I go to the example, I will see that there is a parameter called page name. I'm copying from here, and I'm adding it to the parameters. Okay, so let me switch drop so I can see everything. All right, cool. So I'm adding it here. Now, what should I enter as a page name? It turns out you need to go to your reports URL, go to your page, and from the report URL, you need to copy this part called report section and the numbers and basically that identifier of the page. You paste it here as a parameter, and well, hopefully that will work. Let's test it. So now I have two folders with two configurations. One is for my sales, well, first page of the report. I don't indicate any page here. And the second one for the page I just pasted here. Same filter settings. Let's run. So I save all and I'll run the tool again. Now I'm putting 2 for the number of reports, but that will mean that for each report, the tool will run 2 sessions, which will be imitation of 4 user activities. If I put 3, I will have 6 because I have 2 folders. Okay, so the number I'm putting here will be used for each folder configuration to run. So I can keep 3 actually. Well, let's see what's going to happen. So I'm running it. You see, this is my second page, returns summary, returns summary 2, returns summary 3. And now we will see 3 additional sessions for my sales. And it's working. So I have three windows for sales summary page and 3 windows for return summary page. Again, all filters are being dynamically applied. We have 5 seconds interval between them, etc. Excellent. Now, but that's not it. That's not it. So we can do even more. In many cases, well, I like to use bookmarks, and I like to switch between views in the report using bookmarks. So, for example, as I showed in the beginning, so in my report, I have these bookmarks, and it allows me to switch on the same report page. The bookmarks allow me to switch between matrix view, map view on the same page. So I want to imitate this activity too. Well, it turns out this tool allows you to do that as well. If we look into the example on the GitHub page, we will see there is a section called bookmarks. I'm just copying it here. So for my sales page, okay, let's go here. Obviously, I need my bookmarks here. So, and the bookmarks, similar to pages, you can take from your actual report URL. So it turns out when you click your bookmark, so I will go to even to reading view. When I click my bookmark, well, button that runs a bookmark, I can see it here in my URL. So I just used this bookmark, and all I need to do is to copy this bookmark code and use it in the configuration file. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Well, I already have that bookmark copied. I will just copy paste them in that configuration section. Just copying it from another file. Right, let's come here. Cool. By the way, another reason I like to use Visual Studio Code, because you can easily format your code so it's better readable, like format document, and it's kind of very well structured. Okay, so bookmarks are here. Let's save and see what's going to happen when I run my tool. Okay, so where is that? PowerShell. Running my tool, and I will just run 2 sessions for each. All right, let's see. Return summary. Well, we don't have any bookmarks here. Return summary, second page, no bookmarks here. Sales summary. Okay, that's graphs. And here we have now bookmarked also part of that user imitating scenarios. So basically it goes, the tool is going through all my filter combinations with all bookmark combinations and for each page, which is absolutely amazing. So I'm actually imitating real user actions, like if they selecting filters, slicers, bookmarks, doing something on the page. Brilliant. So I kind of achieved what I wanted in terms of user activities, but I kind of felt very disappointed with this header. So it was not informative enough. Like, let's be honest, if you're testing your solution and you're running it for hundreds of times, and it shows you just average refresh time, well, that's kind of ridiculous, because you may have 10 runs out of 200 where it took 20 seconds to refresh when a particular bookmark or filter combinations was used, and you will not know that from the average, right? So I thought, okay, so this is not going to work. It's definitely good. We can use some backend monitoring tools. If you have directquery, you can monitor a lot on your database. You can use some premium capacity related tools to monitor capacities, etc. But still, it's not showing you the enough information about refresh time for each session, or at least if there is any threshold. So, and I spent a little bit more time on understanding how the tool works. It turned out like it's an open source, right? So as I said, it's open source, and everything is basically comes down to these files. So for each report page, I have my configuration, which I already showed to you. And we also have this HTML document, which also contains some JavaScript and some coding that makes it happen. And then I thought, okay, so like I need to make a confession. So I never coded in HTML or JavaScript, etc. So that was something very new to me. But I had some coding experience, so I understand very well concept of variables, loops, etc., etc. So I kind of went through the code and I understood, and because it shows average, obviously it takes the actual refresh time for each session somewhere, and then edits and calculates average. So the data is there. I just had to understand where to take it from. And basically with like spending 1-2 days on that and using a little bit ChatGPT, which was brilliant in this case, by the way, I managed to introduce a new parameter to my configuration file and change the header. So I will show to you actually what I did. I will close that. I will just quickly replace the existing configuration with the one I have prepared. Just for the sake of time, because we don't have much time, I will not go through all the details. I will just use it. So I need to come here and replace these two files. All right. So, okay, I will show to you what's. I introduced a new parameter in that script file, and I added it to the configuration file. It's called refresh time threshold seconds. So I can basically say to the tool, this is my threshold. Please compare to this and give me some statistics. And now I need to refresh a token here because I replaced the folder. So to refresh the token, I need to update token, run update token command. Just bear with me for a second. Okay, now I will run the tool again with my newly configured parameters. Run this tool. Okay, and please do that for 3 sessions. Let's see. Oh, sorry. And oops. And okay. Okay, this is a new header. Now, with just a little bit of effort and understanding of like coding concepts and using ChatGPT, I could modify that HTML document to basically give me this. So it shows me a number of refreshes, which was already there, but I use some bold fonts, etc. So it shows me, again, average refresh time, but also I managed to capture the last refresh time, and I'm showing it for each and every refresh. I'm showing the maximum refresh time out of all refreshes. I'm showing my threshold, which I can change in my configuration file. And I'm counting the number of refreshes when my threshold was reached, which was quite enough for my case. I could run it for 100 times and have statistics for each run. And I could confidently say that, okay, so out of 150 refreshes, we only had, let's say, 3 or 4 times when it reached the threshold, but the maximum was this. Is it acceptable? Acceptable. Okay, let's deploy in production. So that was my story, actual story with a customer. And I will share that configuration file with you as well. I'm not sure if I can copy it in the chat window. Let me try. Maybe I will do it later. Yeah, basically that's my story, and I think this tool is extremely useful for any kind of Power BI project when you can actually imitate the actions of so many users and have some statistics and see what's your actual refresh time, average refresh time, how many times threshold was reached, etc. Yeah, that's it. Any questions?
Wow, terrific, Artem. Thank you very much. I had no idea that that was possible to do all of those things. So I've been blown away by what you've shown. So thank you very much. Yeah, any questions from anyone? Still need to put the questions in the chat if you do have any questions. Artem, you have shared the links, right? Maybe you could post them in the Meetup website against this event as well, just so that those links are available. Although I think anyone that attended this Teams meeting should still be able to see the chat after the meeting. Is that right? I'm not an expert in Teams.
I'm not sure, but I will try to kind of also include that reconfigured HTML document to add that header and upload it to the Meetup file so that everyone can download it. Because everything else you can see from the GitHub page, but that one was kind of my thing I did, and obviously it's not there.
Yeah, okay. There's a couple of comments there.
I was going to say that there was a more general question that had come up just asking if the recording was going to be shared afterwards as well.
Yeah, I think we can do that. So, well, I'm assuming, did we record it? Yes, we did record it. That's good.
Yeah, it's recording. Well, the important thing I want to mention in regards to this tool, well, obviously you can imagine that you're running everything on your machine, and you need to be aware about your local machine resources. So if you're trying to imitate actions of 3-5 users, that's okay. But if you're going to imitate actions of 50 users, well, the resources of your machine will not be enough. And you need to remember that, because if you reach the limit of your CPU or memory on your local machine, which can easily happen with 20 sessions of Chrome running Power BI reports, you will have incorrect results in statistics. So what's way out of that? Well, option number one, you can create a virtual machine, give it a huge pool of resources, and run it there, monitoring again resources. Option two, you can find 3-4 testers, configure that tool, and each can run 10 sessions, which will give you 40 or 50, and that's already maybe quite enough for some projects. So please be aware about that. Another thing is query caching. Like if query caching is happening, then you may not have the actual kind of result reflected in your numbers. So if you read through the GitHub article, it addresses that. So it tells you what are approaches to do that. So you can create some test combinations of filters to test it, but don't run it fully, because if you run it full once, then probably many things will be cached. So you need to be aware of that and also kind of plan accordingly. So that article is pretty good. GitHub article and configuration guidance is pretty good. So just read through that, and I think that will help many people to test the solutions properly. And of course, so again, consider consulting with your security, because that's an open source. If you have sensitive data, so just be aware of that's open source. So you need to be careful. Running it in probably dev environment with dummy data should be fine, but different organizations may have different policies about that.
Very good. Thanks, Artem. Also, I note a comment there from Mike Honey. Hi, Mike. Yeah, I also thought the same thing, that you changed the code, Artem, to write it to the HTML screen, but maybe you could also write it to a log file using another type of modification. But I'm sure there's plenty of programmers and budding programmers out there that will take the inspiration from you and take it to the next level. So great. Thank you very much for sharing. So, okay, everyone, thank you for joining. For those of you that are in Sydney, just be aware that next month, April, I think I do have a date, but I don't have it top of mind to tell you right at this call. But we do have the Microsoft CAT team visiting us in Sydney. So I know we have Patrick LeBlanc of Guy in a Cube fame. We have Phil Seamark. Phil is a New Zealander who's been on the CAT team for a period of time, and there are a couple other names. My apologies to whoever those two. I think there's 1 or 2 other people, so I can't top of mind recall who else is coming. But that's bound to be a great session. That will be live at the Microsoft Reactor in Sydney. So keep your eye out for that. It'll be announced in the next couple of days, and hope we can see many of you come along. How do you register for that? Just keep an eye out. As long as you're subscribed at meetup.com for our new events, you'll get that in your inbox in the next day or 2. Okay, anything else from Calum or Artem?
No, just thank you all so much for coming along and listening to the talks.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, thanks all. Have a great evening. Thanks, guys. Bye.